Hey everyone, welcome back to the Confidence Breakthrough Podcast. I'm absolutely thrilled you're here today. Thanks so much for tuning in, whether this is your first time listening or you're a regular. Before we dive into today's episode, I want to say a quick thank you for supporting the show. Your support means everything to me. Today, we're tackling something that I know affects so many people around the world, and I'm genuinely excited to talk about it with you. We're exploring how to speak English with genuine confidence, clarity, and authenticity. This isn't just another quick tips episode. We're going deep. I want to be honest right from the start. When I say confidence, I'm not talking about being perfect. I'm not talking about never stumbling over words or always knowing exactly what to say. Confidence is something completely different, and I'm going to show you exactly what it really is. Over the next little while, I'm going to share with you the framework that changed my own relationship with speaking, the one I've seen transform hundreds of learners' abilities. By the end of this episode, you're going to understand not just what confidence is, but how to build it systematically, day by day, practice by practice. So, grab a cup of coffee, tea, or whatever you enjoy. Get comfortable, and let's start this journey together. Before we can build confidence, we need to understand what it actually is. This is so important because most people have completely wrong ideas about what confidence means. Many learners think confidence comes from knowing everything. They think it's about having memorized every word in the English dictionary or having perfect grammar locked in their brain. They think it's about never hesitating, never searching for a word, never making a single mistake in conversation. But here's the truth that changed everything for me. Confidence has almost nothing to do with perfection. In fact, perfectionism is actually one of the biggest barriers to developing real confidence. Think about it for a second. When you're focused on being perfect, you're focused on fear. Real confidence is about something totally different. It's about your ability to express yourself authentically, even if it's not perfect. It's about your capacity to keep a conversation going, even when you hit a bump. It's about how you handle the inevitable mistakes that happen when you're communicating. Confidence is the feeling you get when you're not terrified of what might go wrong. It's when you can laugh at yourself when you mix up a word. It's when you can ask someone to repeat something without feeling embarrassed. It's when you can keep talking even though you're nervous. And here's the beautiful part. Confidence is not something you're born with. It's not a trait that some people have and others don't. Confidence is a skill. And like any skill, you can learn it, develop it, and master it through consistent practice and the right mindset. I've seen the shyest, most anxious people transform into comfortable, fluent speakers. And you know what the difference was? Not talent, not a special gift. It was their willingness to practice, to fail, to try again, and to be kind to themselves in the process. So that's what we're really building today. We're not building perfection. We're building the skill of speaking comfortably, clearly, and authentically in English. And that's something absolutely everyone can develop. Let's talk about what stops so many people from speaking confidently in the first place. Because if we understand what's holding you back, we can address it directly. For most English learners, it starts in the mind. Before we ever open our mouths to speak, we're already having conversations with ourselves. And these internal conversations are often full of fear and doubt. You might be thinking things like, everyone will judge my accent. They'll know I'm not a native speaker. They'll laugh at my mistakes. I'll forget what I want to say. I'll mess up the grammar. I'm not good enough to speak with real English speakers. These thoughts are incredibly common. And here's something important I want you to know. You're not alone in this. Literally millions of English learners have these exact same thoughts. Even experienced speakers get nervous sometimes. I still get nervous sometimes. But the question isn't whether you get nervous or doubt yourself. Everyone does. The question is, do you let those thoughts stop you from speaking? Because if you do, they win. Your fear gets to make the decisions about what you can and can't do. Let me tell you a story. I once worked with a learner named Marco. Marco was this brilliant guy. He had extensive knowledge of English, he'd studied grammar, vocabulary, everything, but he was absolutely terrified to speak to anyone. He would literally freeze up in conversations. One day, I asked him what exactly he was afraid of. He said, "I'm afraid people will judge me. I'm afraid I'll make mistakes." I asked him, "Well, what happens if you do make a mistake?" He paused. He'd never really thought about it. He just assumed the world would end. So we talked about it. What actually happens when you make a mistake in English? Nothing catastrophic. The person you're talking to might not even notice. Or they might notice, and then what? They know you're learning. They might help you. They might just move on with the conversation. But until Marco actually faced that fear by speaking despite it, he was stuck. The anxiety in his head seemed enormous because it was abstract. But the actual reality of making a mistake, it was completely manageable. This is why the first step to confident speaking is letting go of the fear of mistakes. And I mean truly letting go, not just intellectually understanding that mistakes are okay, but genuinely accepting them as a natural and necessary part of learning. Everyone makes mistakes. I've been speaking English my entire life, and I still sometimes stumble over words, use the wrong tense, or forget what I was saying. Native speakers do this all the time. It's completely normal and natural. When you're speaking English, your primary goal should never be perfection. Your primary goal should be communication. Can you express your thoughts? Can you connect with the other person? Can you get your message across? That's what matters. Let me give you a practical example. Imagine you're ordering coffee at a cafe. You walk up to the counter and the barista asks you what you'd like. You start to say something and you realize you forgot the English word for what you want. What should you do? Option 1, panic, freeze up, embarrass yourself, maybe run out of the cafe. Option 2, pause for a second, describe what you want, or use another word. Maybe you say, "I'd like that hot drink with the milk and the espresso." The barista knows what you mean. Most baristas don't care if you use the exact word cappuccino. They care that you get the coffee you want. And you know what? That moment of searching for the word actually shows confidence. It shows you're not afraid of a small pause or a small error. So here's what I want you to understand. Mistakes aren't failures. Mistakes are your brain learning and adapting. Mistakes are proof that you're pushing yourself to grow. In fact, I'm going to make a bold statement. The people who make the most mistakes when speaking English are often the people who improve the fastest. Why? Because they're not afraid to try. They're not waiting for permission or perfect conditions. They're just speaking, learning, and adjusting as they go. Let's dig deeper into this idea of accepting mistakes, because there's something really important here about self-compassion that I want to share. So you're speaking English and you say something that's grammatically incorrect, or you use the wrong word, or you completely mess up a sentence. What happens next? What's your internal response? For a lot of people, it's harsh self-criticism. They immediately think negative things about themselves. They feel embarrassed, they lose momentum, they might even stop speaking entirely. But what if you could change that internal response? What if, when you made a mistake, instead of criticizing yourself, you actually encouraged yourself? This might sound simple, but it's genuinely transformative. Self-compassion is the foundation of confidence. When you can make a mistake and then treat yourself with kindness instead of judgment, you're building a resilience that carries you through every challenging situation. Think about how you would treat a friend who's learning English. If your friend stumbled over a word, would you judge them harshly? Would you think less of them? No, of course not. You'd probably encourage them. You'd probably smile and maybe help them with the word. You'd acknowledge that they're doing something difficult. So why do we treat ourselves so much more harshly? Why do we have these internal voices that are so critical and mean? Usually, it's because we've internalized messages about what we should be able to do, about what success looks like. But here's the reality. You're learning a language. You're doing something genuinely difficult. You deserve to be treated with kindness and patience, especially by yourself. Let me give you a mental exercise that I find really helpful. Imagine you're speaking English and you make a mistake. Now imagine that mistake had a voice. What would it say to you? Your internal critic? It might say something like, "You're terrible. Everyone noticed. You'll never be good at this." Now imagine that critical voice comes from outside. It's not you talking to yourself. It's someone else being incredibly mean to you. How would that feel? You'd probably be upset. You'd probably think that person was being unfair and unkind. Well, that's exactly what's happening when you have that internal voice criticizing you. You're being mean to yourself. You're being unfair to yourself. You're judging yourself in a way you'd never judge a friend. So here's what I want you to do. The next time you make a mistake in English, I want you to pause, and I want you to deliberately choose kindness. You could say something to yourself like, "I made a mistake. That's okay. I'm learning. I'll do better next time." Or, "I forgot that word, but I found another way to express myself. That's actually smart." Or, simply, "I'm being brave by speaking even though I'm nervous." This isn't about lying to yourself or pretending mistakes don't happen. It's about choosing to respond to yourself with the kindness you deserve. And when you do this consistently, something incredible happens. You become less afraid of mistakes, because mistakes no longer feel like personal failures. They feel like opportunities. Now, I want to talk about anxiety specifically, because anxiety is a huge factor in how confident we feel when we speak. Anxiety about speaking English is completely legitimate. You're stepping outside your comfort zone. You're doing something that requires effort and attention. Your brain might be working in a language that's not your primary language. That's challenging. It makes sense that you'd feel some anxiety. But here's what's interesting. Anxiety isn't actually bad. Anxiety is your body trying to protect you. It's your nervous system saying, "Hey, this is important. We should be alert." That's actually a healthy response. The problem isn't the anxiety itself. The problem is when we try to eliminate it, or when we let it control our actions. Think about public speaking. Most people are nervous before they give a presentation. Even professional speakers get nervous, but they do the presentation anyway. The nervousness doesn't stop them. Why? Because they understand that being nervous is not the same as being incapable. You can be nervous and still speak English well. You can be anxious and still communicate effectively. These things can coexist. What you want to do is develop what I call anxiety management, not anxiety elimination. You're not trying to never feel nervous again. You're learning how to feel nervous and still function. Here are some practical techniques that actually work. First, breathing. Before you speak, before you're in a conversation, take a few deep breaths. When you're nervous, you tend to breathe shallowly, which actually makes the anxiety worse. Deep breathing tells your nervous system that you're safe. Try this right now if you can. Take a slow breath in through your nose for a count of 4, hold it for a count of 4, then exhale slowly through your mouth for a count of 4. Do this 3 or 4 times. Notice how your body feels different. Second, physical grounding. If you're really anxious, sometimes it helps to feel your body. You could press your feet firmly into the ground, you could hold on to something, you could splash cold water on your face. These techniques activate your parasympathetic nervous system, which is your body's calming system. Third, reframing your anxiety. Instead of thinking, "I'm so nervous, this is terrible," try thinking, "I'm so excited, this is important to me." The physical feelings are actually almost identical. The only difference is the story you tell yourself about those feelings. Fourth, Preparation. Anxiety often decreases when you feel prepared. I know we'll talk more about preparation later, but just know that if you take time to prepare what you want to say, to practice difficult pronunciations, to review vocabulary you might need, your anxiety will naturally decrease. Fifth, exposure. The more you put yourself in situations where you speak English, the less anxious you become. This is called habituation. Your brain gets used to it. It stops being so novel and scary. It becomes normal. But here's the key. You don't have to jump into the deep end. You can start small. You can practice speaking in low-stakes situations first. Maybe you practice with a language partner instead of a stranger. Maybe you practice a conversation by yourself before you have it with someone else. The point is, you're gradually expanding your comfort zone. You're slowly proving to yourself that you can do this, even when you're nervous. Now I want to introduce you to a technique that's used by athletes, performers, and anyone trying to master a skill. It's called mental practice or visualization, and it's incredibly powerful. Your brain is remarkable. It can't always distinguish between something you've actually done and something you've vividly imagined. This is why practicing something mentally can actually improve your physical performance. Here's how this works for English speaking. Before you're in a situation where you need to speak, imagine it in detail. Use all of your senses. What do you see? What do you hear? How does your body feel? For example, let's say you're nervous about speaking English with coworkers. You might visualize yourself in the break room. You see the coffee machine. You hear conversations. A colleague walks up and asks, "How's your day going?" You take a breath. You smile. You say, "It's going well, thanks. How about you?" They respond. You continue the conversation naturally. You imagine this going smoothly. You imagine yourself speaking clearly. You imagine feeling comfortable. And you're imagining this because you're actually training your brain and your nervous system to respond that way when it really happens. Visualization is especially powerful when combined with something called success anchoring. This means you remember times in your life when you've done something difficult and succeeded. You've overcome something challenging. You've been brave. Maybe you learned to ride a bicycle and you fell off a few times, but you kept trying until you could do it. Maybe you learned to swim. Maybe you did something scary and pushed through it. These experiences are proof that you can do hard things. You can be nervous and do it anyway. You can fail and try again. You have evidence of this in your own life. So when you're facing a situation where you need to speak English and you're nervous, I want you to remember that evidence. I want you to think about other difficult things you've accomplished. And I want you to tell yourself, "I've done hard things before. I can do this too." This is not positive thinking in a fluffy, denial-based kind of way. This is grounding yourself in actual evidence. You have shown that you can be brave. You have shown that you can do difficult things. This is just another difficult thing, and you can do it too. Here's something that might surprise you. One of the most powerful ways to build speaking confidence is actually through listening. Not just casual listening, but active, intentional listening. When you listen carefully, several things happen. First, you're building a deeper understanding of how the language actually works. You're hearing natural patterns, natural rhythm, natural pronunciation. You're learning from real examples. Second, you're reducing your cognitive load when you do speak. If you already have a strong understanding of how English works from listening, speaking becomes easier because you're not trying to translate everything in your head. Third, you're building conversational competence. When you listen carefully, you understand not just what someone said, but the context. You understand why they said it. You understand how they're feeling. This makes you a better conversation partner. Fourth, listening builds empathy and connection, which actually translates into more confident speaking. When you really listen to someone, you're focused on them, not on your own anxiety. You're engaged in the conversation. Let me give you a practical framework for active listening. When someone is speaking to you in English, you're doing 4 things. 1, you're actually hearing the words they're saying. 2, you're understanding the meaning behind those words. 3, you're noticing their tone and emotion. 4, you're thinking about how to respond authentically. If you're nervous about speaking, you might skip steps 1 through 3 and jump straight to 4. You're so focused on what you're going to say next that you're not really listening to what they're saying. This makes conversations awkward, and it makes you more anxious. But if you focus on really listening, on being present in the conversation, something shifts. You become less anxious because you're not in your head, you're in the conversation. And then, when it's time for you to respond, you have something genuine to respond to. Here's a practical technique. When someone is speaking, imagine that you're genuinely curious about what they're saying, because you probably are. Most people are interested in other people. We want to know what they think, how they feel, what they've experienced. So lean into that curiosity. Ask clarifying questions if you don't understand. Could you explain that a bit more? I didn't quite understand that last part. These aren't failures. These are signs of genuine interest. They show you're engaged. And here's the beautiful thing. When you ask clarifying questions, you're giving yourself time to think. You're buying yourself mental space. And the person you're talking to usually feels appreciated because they know you care about understanding what they're saying. So listening is actually a power move for confident speaking. It's not something you do before you speak. It's something you do while you speak. It's the foundation of every good conversation. Let's talk about something that sounds boring, but is actually incredibly powerful: repetition, specifically repetitive practice that builds what we call muscle memory. Muscle memory is the idea that when you repeat something many times, your brain creates automatic pathways. You don't have to consciously think about it anymore. It just flows. Think about riding a bicycle. When you first learn, you have to think about everything: balance, pedaling, steering. It's overwhelming. But after you've done it many times, you can ride without thinking. Your body just knows what to do. Speaking English is similar. When you first learn, everything requires conscious effort. You have to think about grammar. You have to search for vocabulary. You have to construct sentences. But the more you practice, the more automatic it becomes. You speak without translating in your head. And this is where repetition comes in. Specifically, I want to tell you about a technique called shadowing, which is one of the most effective ways to build fluency and confidence. Shadowing means you're listening to someone speak English and then immediately repeating what they said, trying to match their pronunciation, their speed, their intonation. You're basically shadowing their speech. Here's why this works. You're training your brain and your mouth to produce English sounds. You're building muscle memory for how to form these sounds. You're also learning natural patterns because you're copying someone who speaks naturally. The best materials for shadowing are ones that you enjoy. You could use English podcasts. You could use YouTube videos. You could use movies or TV shows. You could use audiobooks. The key is that you're hearing English spoken naturally. The first time you do this, it might feel awkward or weird. You might feel self-conscious hearing your own voice. That's totally normal. But I promise you, this is one of the most effective techniques there is. As you do this more, something shifts. You start to internalize the rhythms of English. You start to understand how words connect. You understand where the stress falls in words and sentences. You develop what linguists call prosody, which is the music of the language. And here's what's beautiful about this technique. You can do it anywhere. You can do it on your commute. You can do it while you're exercising. You can do it while you're doing dishes. You're not relying on having a conversation partner. You're just training your brain and your mouth. Let me give you an example. Let's say you're listening to a podcast and the host says, "This is absolutely fascinating, and I'm so glad you're here today." You'd listen to that sentence once, then you'd play it again and pause after absolutely. You'd say, absolutely. Then you'd continue. This is absolutely, pause, say it. Then, this is absolutely fascinating, pause, say it, and so on. You're building up the sentence piece by piece. You're training your mouth to produce these sounds and these rhythms, and you're building your confidence because you're producing English sounds correctly. If you do this for even 15 minutes a day, you'll notice improvement within weeks. I'm not exaggerating. This technique is that powerful. Now let's talk about practice in a different way. We're going to talk about creating and practicing conversations based on real situations you actually encounter. One of the most valuable things you can do is identify the situations in your life where you use English or where you might use English. Then you practice those situations. Maybe you talk to English speakers at work. Maybe you order things online or over the phone. Maybe you attend classes or meetings where English is spoken. Maybe you go to international events. Maybe you just want to be able to have casual conversations. Whatever your situation is, you can practice it. And the way to practice it is to imagine the situation in detail and then create a conversation. Let me give you some examples. First, ordering food at a restaurant. You can practice this anywhere, even at home. You imagine yourself walking up to a counter or sitting at a table. A server or barista asks, "What can I get for you today?" You've prepared your answer. In real life, you might say something like, "I'd like a medium cappuccino and a chocolate croissant, please." Then the server might ask, "For here or to go?" And you respond, "For here, thank you." Then they might ask, "That's going to be $7.50. Will that be cash or card?" You can practice this whole conversation by yourself. The first time you do it, it might feel weird. You might feel silly. But remember, you're building muscle memory. You're training your brain. And when you actually do it in real life, it will feel familiar. The beauty of this approach is that it's low stakes. You can make mistakes. You can try again. You can practice the same conversation 10 times if you want. There's no judgment. Here's another example. Making a phone call to schedule an appointment. "Hello, I'd like to schedule an appointment. I'm available Tuesday or Thursday afternoon. Which would work for you?" Again, you can practice this conversation. You can vary it slightly each time. Or greeting someone you've just met. "Hi, I'm Sarah. What's your name? Where are you from? What do you do?" These simple conversation starters are incredibly useful, and they're things you can absolutely practice ahead of time. The key is to start with situations that are lower stakes. You want to build confidence in situations where the consequences of making a mistake are minimal. Nobody's going to judge you harshly if you say the wrong thing when ordering coffee, but that experience builds your confidence. Then, as you become more comfortable, you can graduate to more challenging situations. Maybe you're presenting in a meeting. Maybe you're making a complaint to customer service. Maybe you're having a deeper conversation about something important to you. But you're building on a foundation. You're proving to yourself that you can do these things. Here's something I want you to do. Right now, or after you finish listening to this, I want you to identify 3 situations in your life where you speak English or where you might speak English. Write them down. Then, for each situation, write down the likely conversation. What would someone ask you? What would you say? Then practice. Practice these conversations out loud. Aim for clarity and naturalness, not perfection. Say them the way you would naturally say them, and practice them multiple times until they feel comfortable. Here's something I've noticed in my years of working with English learners. Many of them believe that speaking fast means speaking well. They think native speakers are always rapid and fluent, and therefore, to sound fluent, they need to speak fast too. But this is actually backwards. Successful, confident speakers are usually not speaking as fast as possible. They're speaking at a pace that allows them to be clear and thoughtful. When you speak too quickly, several things happen. Your pronunciation suffers because you're moving too fast to form sounds clearly. Your grammar is more likely to be incorrect because you don't have time to think about it. You're more likely to miss words or stumble. And ironically, you sound less confident, not more confident. Confidence is actually demonstrated by speaking clearly at a measured pace. When you speak slowly and deliberately, you sound thoughtful, you sound in control, you sound like you know what you're saying. Think about someone you consider to be a great speaker. They're probably not racing through their words. They're probably taking their time. They're probably using pauses. They're probably enunciating clearly. So here's my challenge to you. Slow down your speech. I mean this literally. Speak more slowly than you think you need to. If you normally speak English at a certain pace, try speaking 20% slower. What you'll notice is that you can form sounds more clearly. Your listener can understand you better. You have time to think about what you're saying, and you sound more confident. Let me give you an example. A rushed version might sound like, "I'm gonna be later, there was traffic on the highway." You can barely understand what they said. They sound anxious. But if the same person slows down and says, "I'm going to be late, there was traffic on the highway," suddenly you can understand every word. They sound calm, they sound in control. This isn't about sounding unnatural or robotic. There's a difference between speaking slowly and speaking unnaturally. You want to speak clearly and at a measured pace, but still naturally, still with emotion and life. Here's a technique. Before you speak, take a breath. This does two things. One, it gives your nervous system a moment to calm down. Two, it signals to your brain that you're about to speak, and it gives you a moment to think about what you want to say. Then speak. Use pauses. It's okay to pause between thoughts. Native speakers do this all the time. A pause is not a failure. A pause shows you're thinking. So your challenge this week is to focus on pace. Notice how quickly you're speaking. Deliberately slow down. Pay attention to how it feels different. Pay attention to how people respond. I bet you'll notice that you feel more confident and people understand you better. This might sound strange, but one of the most powerful ways to build speaking confidence is to speak English when nobody's listening. I mean, literally talk to yourself in English. I know this can feel weird at first. You might feel self-conscious, you might feel silly, but I promise you, this is one of the most effective practices. Here's why. When you talk to yourself, there's no social pressure, there's no judgment, there's no stakes. You can say whatever you want. If you mess up, who cares? You just keep going. But you're still practicing, you're still building the neural pathways, you're still developing confidence. And here's something really important. When you speak to yourself, you're creating a relationship with your own voice in English. You're becoming comfortable hearing yourself speak English. This might sound small, but it's actually huge for confidence. So how do you do this? Well, the simplest way is to describe what you're doing as you go through your day. You wake up. You say, "Good morning, I'm going to have a great day." You go to the kitchen. "I'm going to make some breakfast. I think I'll have cereal and coffee." You're not having a deep philosophical conversation with yourself. You're just narrating your life in English. And honestly, this has multiple benefits. 1, you're practicing. 2, you're focusing on vocabulary related to your actual life. 3, you're training your brain to think in English rather than translate from your native language. Let me give you a specific example. It's Saturday morning and you're getting ready to go out. You might say something like, "Okay, I need to get ready now. Let me see, what should I wear? It looks pretty warm outside, so maybe I'll wear shorts and a t-shirt. I should probably bring sunscreen. Let me find my backpack. Do I have my wallet and my phone? Yes, I do. All right, I'm ready to go out." You're not being dramatic about it. You're just talking to yourself like you would naturally. Or another scenario, you're cooking dinner. "All right, I'm going to make pasta. First, I need to boil water. Let me fill this pot with water." Now I'm going to put it on the stove. Okay, while that's heating up, I'll prepare the sauce. I need tomatoes, garlic, and olive oil. Again, you're just narrating what you're doing. You're thinking out loud in English. Here's something else you can do. Have imaginary conversations. Imagine someone asking you questions and you answer out loud. How was your day? Well, it was pretty interesting actually. I had a meeting at work where we discussed a new project. Then I went to lunch with a friend. She told me about her vacation plans. We talked about traveling to Costa Rica. You're having a full conversation with yourself, and you're practicing how you would actually talk in real life. Now, you might be thinking, Lily, what if my family hears me talking to myself? And that's a fair question. Maybe you find a private space. Maybe you do this while you're driving. Maybe you do this in the shower. Or maybe you embrace it. Tell your family what you're doing and do it anyway. I will tell you, when I was learning languages, I would talk to myself constantly. In the car, I would have full conversations in the language I was learning. I would narrate my thoughts, and it absolutely made a difference in my fluency and my confidence. The people around you might think you're a little weird, but you know what? You're taking your learning seriously. You're creating opportunities to practice. That's impressive, not weird. So here's my challenge to you. Start today. Pick a time when you can speak English to yourself without interruption. Maybe it's 15 minutes, maybe it's 30 minutes, and just talk. Describe what you're doing. Have imaginary conversations. Tell stories about your day. And pay attention to how it feels. Notice that after a while, it stops feeling weird. It starts feeling natural, and you'll be amazed at how much more comfortable you feel speaking English. Here's something that I think is really important and often overlooked: celebrating your progress, actually acknowledging and appreciating the improvements you're making. Many learners focus only on how far they have to go. They think, I still can't have a full conversation, I still make mistakes, I still don't sound like a native speaker, and they get discouraged. But this focus on what's lacking actually works against you. It undermines your confidence, it makes you feel like you're never good enough. I want to invite you to shift that perspective. Yes, you have more to learn. That's true of every single person who's ever learned anything. But you've also made progress. You have improved, and acknowledging that progress is crucial for building confidence. Here's why. Your brain actually responds to positive reinforcement. When you notice something good, when you appreciate an accomplishment, your brain releases chemicals that make you feel good and motivated. This motivates you to keep going. So I want you to start practicing something called micro-celebration. This is where you notice and celebrate small wins. Maybe today you remembered a new word while having a conversation. That's a win. You learned something and you used it in real time. That's awesome. Maybe you had a phone call in English and you understood most of it without asking the person to repeat themselves. That's a win. Your listening comprehension is improving. Maybe you made a mistake, and instead of beating yourself up about it, you corrected yourself and kept going. That's a win. You handled a challenging moment with grace. Maybe you had a conversation that felt more natural and less scripted than before. That's a win. You're getting more comfortable. What you want to do is actually pause and notice these things. You can say to yourself, hey, I did that well. You can tell someone else about it. Guess what? I had a whole conversation in English today and I didn't panic once. You can write it down. The point is, you're deliberately training your brain to notice improvements. You're building positive associations with English speaking. Here's a daily practice I recommend. At the end of each day, take a minute or two and think about one thing you did well in English today. It doesn't have to be big, it can be small. You said a sentence clearly. You understood something you weren't sure about. You felt less nervous than you usually do. And then I want you to say to yourself, either out loud or in your head, I'm proud of myself for that. I'm getting better. This isn't about arrogance or false confidence. It's about realistic self-assessment. You're getting better. You are. You're putting in effort. You're practicing. Of course you're getting better. And the more you acknowledge that, the more confident you become. Now, I want to address something that can undermine confidence very quickly: comparison, specifically comparing your English to other people's English. This is so tempting in our modern world. We see videos of fluent speakers. We hear people speaking naturally. We meet people who seem to speak better than us, and we think, well, I'm behind. I'm not as good as them. But here's the truth that I really want you to get. Comparison is the death of confidence. Comparison is not helpful. It's not motivating. It just makes you feel bad about yourself. Because here's the thing, you don't know other people's journeys. You don't know how long they've been studying English. You don't know if English is their native language. You don't know what their strengths and weaknesses are. You only see the surface. And even if you did know all of that, comparison would still not be helpful, because the only person you should be measuring yourself against is yourself. The right question is not, am I better than this person? The right question is, am I better than I was 3 months ago, 6 months ago, a year ago? Let me give you an example. Imagine you're watching a video of someone speaking English fluently. No pauses, no mistakes, just flowing naturally. And you think, I'm nowhere near that level. I'm terrible. But you're not thinking about the reality of that situation. You're not thinking about the fact that person might have been studying English for 10 years. You're not thinking about the fact that they might have lived in an English-speaking country. You're not thinking about their specific strengths. And more importantly, you're not thinking about your own strengths. You might have strengths in different areas. Maybe you have better grammar than them. Maybe you have better comprehension. Maybe you have better pronunciation. Every person's English is unique. Every person has different strengths and weaknesses. Your job is not to match someone else's English. Your job is to develop your English in a way that serves your goals. So here's my challenge to you. When you notice yourself comparing yourself to someone else, I want you to pause. I want you to deliberately redirect that thought. Instead of thinking, I'm not as good as them, think, they've had different experiences and practice than I have, and I have different strengths than they do. What I need to focus on is my own progress. And then, if you want to be inspired by how that person speaks, ask yourself, what specifically did they do well? Is that something I want to develop? If so, what would I need to practice? That's a helpful question. That's not comparison. That's learning. The people who develop the most confidence are the people who focus on their own journey. They track their own progress. They celebrate their own wins. They don't spend time and energy worrying about how they stack up against other people. Let's talk about something that can be a game changer for your confidence: having a supportive environment and community around you. Humans are social creatures. We're influenced by the people around us. The environment we're in affects our behavior and our beliefs about ourselves. So, if you want to build confidence in English, you need to think about the environment you're creating. This could mean finding a language partner or study group. It could mean joining an online community of English learners. It could mean surrounding yourself with English media. It could mean telling your friends and family about your goal and asking for their support. The key is that you're not trying to do this alone. You're creating a context where speaking English is normal, where it's encouraged, where there are other people going through the same thing you are. Let me tell you why this matters. When you're around people who are also learning English, you feel less alone. You realize that your struggles are normal. You get encouragement and support, and you get opportunities to speak. If you can find even one person to speak English with regularly, it makes a huge difference. It could be a language partner you find online. It could be a friend who also wants to learn English. It could be a family member who's willing to practice with you. If you have a regular conversation practice partner, you know what to expect. You create a safe space to practice. You can work on specific things. You can laugh together when someone says something funny or mixed up. But even if you can't find a conversation partner, you can still build community. You can join an online forum where English learners discuss things. You can participate in a speaking challenge. You can message friends in English. You can join a group class. The point is, you're creating a context where English is part of your life, not just something you study in isolation. Here's something else that's really powerful. Tell people about your goal. Tell them you're working on your English. When you do this, a couple of things happen. 1, you create accountability. You're more likely to follow through on something you've told people about. 2, people will often support you in ways you didn't expect. They might offer to practice with you. They might send you resources. They might encourage you when you're feeling discouraged. And 3, you might inspire someone else. When people see you working on your English, some of them will want to do the same. You become an example of someone taking their learning seriously. Let me give you a concrete example. Let's say you're in a workplace or a friend group where people speak English. You decide you want to get better at speaking English. You tell a few people, "Hey, I'm working on my English speaking skills. I'm trying to practice having conversations. Would you be willing to speak with me?" Most people will say yes, and now you have a built-in practice opportunity. You have someone who knows what you're working on and is supporting you. Or let's say you're more introverted or you don't have people in your immediate circle who speak English. You can find an online community. There are sites where you can find language exchange partners. There are apps where you can practice speaking with other learners. The point is, there are ways to create community if you're intentional about it. Now I want to talk about vocabulary, because vocabulary is something that a lot of learners think is the key to confidence. If I just know more words, I'll be more confident, right? But actually, I want to challenge that assumption. Yes, vocabulary is important. You need to know words to speak. But the way most learners approach vocabulary building actually works against confidence. Here's what happens. Learners memorize long lists of vocabulary words. They learn the word, the definition, maybe a translation into their native language. Then they forget the word because they never used it in context. And even if they do remember the word, they're often unsure how to use it. Can I use it in this situation? Is it too formal? Is it too casual? How do I pronounce it? All of these uncertainties make people less confident in their speaking. So instead, I want to invite you to think about vocabulary differently. Instead of memorizing lists, learn vocabulary in chunks. Learn phrases. For example, instead of learning the word hungry by itself, learn phrases like, "I'm starving," "I'm feeling peckish," "I haven't eaten all day," "I could eat a horse," "Let's grab something to eat." When you learn phrases, you learn how the word is used. You learn the context. You learn what other words go with it. You learn natural ways people actually use it. And when you're in a conversation and you need to express hunger, you don't have to think, "Do I use the word hungry here?" You just remember the phrase and you use it. This builds confidence because you're not searching for individual words. You're pulling from a repertoire of ready-made phrases. Let me give you another example. Instead of learning happy and sad as individual words, learn phrases like, "I'm so happy about that," "That made me sad," "I'm thrilled," "I'm upset," "I'm delighted," "I'm disappointed." When you learn vocabulary this way, speaking becomes easier because you're using complete phrases that you know work. You're not thinking about grammar in the moment. The grammar is already correct in the phrase. Here's how to apply this. Pick a topic that's relevant to your life. Maybe it's work, maybe it's hobbies, maybe it's food. Then learn vocabulary related to that topic in phrases. For work, you might learn, "I have a meeting," "I'm working on a project," "I need to finish this by Friday," "Can you help me with this?" "I'll send you an email. Let's touch base about this." Now, when you're talking about work, you have real phrases you can use. You don't have to construct everything from scratch. This is also how native speakers learn vocabulary. They learn words in context, in phrases, in sentences, and so should you. Here's something counterintuitive that I want to share with you. Using simple language is actually more sophisticated and more confident than using complex language. I know this might not seem right. Many learners think that to sound educated or to impress people, they need to use big words and complex sentence structures. But actually, the opposite is true. Think about the most respected speakers and writers you know. They usually express complex ideas in simple, clear language. They don't hide behind big words. They make things accessible. And when you're speaking English as a learner, simple language is your friend. It allows you to speak more smoothly, it allows you to avoid mistakes, it allows you to focus on communication rather than struggling with complex grammar. So here's what I want you to do. Challenge yourself to express ideas simply. When you're about to say something complex, pause and ask yourself, is there a simpler way to say this? For example, instead of saying, I am experiencing difficulty in comprehending the matter, just say, I don't understand. Much clearer, much more natural. Instead of, would you mind assisting me with this task? Just say, can you help me? Much simpler, much more confident. Instead of, I am not entirely certain about the solution to this problem, just say, I'm not sure what the answer is. Much better. Simple language is not weak language. It's clear, powerful language. It gets your point across. It's what real people say in real conversations. Here's a practice for you. Take a sentence that feels complex or difficult for you to say. Now rewrite it using simpler words and simpler structures. How many words can you cut out? How many times can you simplify it? For instance, the weather appears to be inclement today, and I would suggest that you consider bringing an umbrella to protect yourself from the precipitation. Simplified, it looks like rain today. You should bring an umbrella. See how much clearer and more natural the second version is. And it's also easier to say. You're not struggling with big words. You're just communicating naturally. This is something you can practice every day. When you're planning what you're going to say, think of the simplest way to say it and use that. Let's talk about something that can make your speaking sound more natural and more fluent. Transition words. These are small words that connect your ideas and help your speech flow. Words like first, then, after that, however, because, so, finally, meanwhile, in addition, for example, instead, although. When you use transition words, your speech is easier to follow. You're guiding the listener through your thoughts, and you sound more confident because your ideas are organized. Let me give you an example. Without transition words, you might say, I went to the store, I bought milk, I came home, I made coffee. These sentences are disconnected, there's no flow. But with transition words, you might say, first, I went to the store, then I bought some milk, after that, I came home. Finally, I made coffee. Suddenly, there's a clear sequence. The listener can follow your story. Or imagine you're explaining why you did something. Without transition words, I didn't go to the party. I was tired, I had a headache, I needed to rest. With transition words, I didn't go to the party because I was tired and had a headache, so I needed to rest instead. The second version is much clearer, and it's also longer and more fluent because you're not stopping and starting as much. Here's a practice for you. Take the simple sentence structures you use and challenge yourself to add transition words. Connect your sentences. Create flow. For example, I usually wake up at 7. I shower and eat breakfast. I start work at 9. I have lunch at noon. I finish work at 5. I go to the gym. I cook dinner. I watch a movie. That's okay, but it's a bit choppy. Now with transition words, first, I usually wake up at 7. Then I shower and eat breakfast. After that, I start work at 9. I have lunch at noon, and finally, I finish work at 5. In the evening, I go to the gym.
After my workout, I cook dinner. Finally, I relax and watch a movie. See the difference? It flows better, it sounds more natural, and you sound more confident. You can practice this daily. When you're telling a story or explaining something, pay attention to how many transition words you use. Challenge yourself to add more. See how it changes the flow of your speech.
Here's something I want to normalize for you. Fillers. You know, those little words like, well, you know, I mean, like, so. Actually, many learners try to eliminate fillers completely. They think fillers make you sound less fluent or less intelligent, but actually, native speakers use fillers all the time. Fillers are a normal part of speech. Fillers serve a purpose. They give your brain time to think. They keep the conversation moving while you're formulating your next thought. They prevent awkward silences. The key is not to eliminate fillers. The key is to use natural fillers. You want to use fillers that are common in English, not fillers from your native language. So if you're a Spanish speaker, you might have a tendency to use Spanish fillers, but you want to use English fillers instead. If you're naturally prone to silence while you think, using a filler like well or let me think is much better. It signals that you're still engaged in the conversation. Here are some natural English fillers. Well, you know, I mean, like, so, actually, kind of, sort of, basically, I guess, I think. These are all things native speakers say, and they're not signs of being inarticulate. They're signs of thinking in real time. Let me give you an example. Someone asks you, what's your favorite food? If you pause in silence, it can feel awkward. But if you say, well, I think I'd have to say pizza. I mean, I love so many foods, but pizza is definitely up there. You're using fillers, but you're also keeping the conversation flowing naturally. Here's a practice. When you're speaking English, allow yourself to use natural fillers. Don't try to speak in perfectly polished sentences where you pause in silence to think. Instead, use phrases like, let me think, you know, I mean, sort of, I guess. This will make your speaking sound more natural and more confident because you're speaking the way real people actually speak. Now, something interesting. Even though you might be having conversations where people can't see you, body language still matters for your confidence. Your physical presence affects how you feel and how you sound. Think about it. If you're slumped in a chair, looking down, your voice probably sounds less confident. But if you're sitting up straight, your shoulders are relaxed, and you're engaged, your voice sounds different. You sound more confident. This is because your body and your mind are connected. Your posture affects your psychology. When you stand tall and speak clearly, your brain actually feels more confident. This is something that psychologists have studied extensively. So here's what I want you to do. When you're preparing to speak English, pay attention to your physical position. Sit up, relax your shoulders, take a deep breath, and then speak. If you're on a video call, this is even more important because people can see you. If you're present and engaged, it shows. People respond to that. You come across as more confident. If you're just speaking with someone on the phone, they can't see you, but your body language still affects your voice. When you speak while sitting upright, your voice projects better. It sounds stronger. And even if you're just practicing by yourself, your body language matters. If you're slouched and miserable while practicing, you're not setting yourself up for success. But if you're sitting up, relaxed, and engaged, your brain registers that this is important. This is something worth doing. Here's a practice. The next time you're about to have a conversation in English or speak English in any context, do a quick body check. Sit up, relax your shoulders, take a breath, maybe stretch a bit, and then speak. Notice how it feels different. Notice how you sound different. This is the power of physical presence. Here's a secret that many confident speakers know. One of the best ways to have a conversation is to ask questions. A lot of questions. Why is this? Well, first, people generally like to talk about themselves. When you ask someone a question about their life, their interests, their opinions, they usually enjoy answering. It makes them feel heard and valued. Second, when you ask questions, you're not the one who has to do all the talking. You're sharing the conversational load. The other person is doing some of the work. Third, when someone else is speaking, you have time to think. You have time to listen and process. You're not in a situation where you have to be talking constantly. Fourth, good questions show that you're engaged. They show that you're interested, and people respond positively to genuine interest. So if you're nervous about speaking English, a great strategy is to ask more questions. Simple questions. How was your day? What do you like to do? Where are you from? What was that like? How did that make you feel? What do you think about that? These are open-ended questions that invite the other person to share, and they're relatively easy for you to ask. Let me give you a framework. If you're having a conversation and you're not sure what to say next, ask a question based on something the other person just said. They mentioned they went hiking. Ask, "Oh, where did you go hiking? How was it?" They mentioned their job. Ask, "What exactly do you do? How long have you been doing that?" When you do this, the conversation flows naturally. You're not struggling to think of things to say. You're in a genuine conversation where both people are participating. Here's a list of questions you can use in almost any conversation. What do you think about that? How was that? Where are you from? What do you do? How do you know so much about that? That sounds interesting. Can you tell me more? Have you always been interested in that? What was that experience like? Practice these questions, get comfortable asking them, and notice how your conversations become easier when you're asking questions rather than trying to fill all the silence yourself. Let's talk about preparation, because preparation is honestly one of the most underrated confidence boosters. When you prepare for a situation where you need to speak English, your confidence naturally goes up. Why? Because you know what to expect. You've practiced. You've thought through what you might say. You have a mental map. Preparation doesn't mean you're going to stick to a script. It means you've done the mental work ahead of time. You've considered the situation. You've thought about vocabulary you might need. You've practiced key phrases. Let me give you some examples. If you have a job interview in English, you can prepare. You can research the company. You can think about common interview questions. You can practice how you would answer them. When you actually get to the interview, you've already had a mental rehearsal. You're not going in completely cold. If you're going to meet someone new and you're nervous about conversation, you can prepare. You can think about what you might say about yourself. You can prepare some questions to ask them. You can think about topics you might discuss. If you're giving a presentation, you can definitely prepare. You can write out the key points. You can practice saying them. You can anticipate questions people might ask. You can feel ready. Preparation actually reduces anxiety because it reduces the unknown. The more you know what to expect, the less anxious you feel. Here's how to prepare for speaking situations. First, think about what the situation will likely entail. What will people ask? What will you need to talk about? Second, write down key vocabulary and phrases you might use. Third, practice saying these things out loud. Fourth, anticipate challenging moments. What if someone asks me something I don't know? What if I don't understand? How will I handle that? Fifth, remind yourself that you've prepared. You're ready. For example, if you're going to a networking event where you'll speak English, you might prepare by thinking through how you'll introduce yourself. You might practice saying your name, what you do, and something interesting about yourself. You might think of some questions to ask other people. You might practice small talk. You might think about what to do if you don't understand someone. When you arrive at the event, you're not going in completely unprepared. You've done the mental work, and that makes you much more confident. Here's something that many people find difficult, but it's incredibly powerful: recording yourself speaking English and listening back to the recording. I know this can feel uncomfortable. Most people don't love hearing their own voice, but this is one of the most effective ways to improve your English and your confidence. When you record yourself, you can hear things that you might not notice in the moment. You can notice your pronunciation. You can notice where you hesitate. You can notice your pace. You can notice your confidence level. And this awareness is the first step to improvement. You can't improve something you're not aware of. Here's how to do it. Pick a simple topic, maybe your daily routine, maybe your favorite hobby, maybe what you did last weekend, and record yourself speaking about it for 2 or 3 minutes. Don't overthink it. Just speak naturally. If you make mistakes, that's fine. You're recording a natural attempt, not a perfect performance. Then listen to the recording and be kind to yourself. Don't focus on every mistake. Instead, notice overall things. How clear is your pronunciation? How natural does it sound? Did you hesitate a lot? How was your pace? Then do it again. Record yourself on the same topic. See if you can do it more smoothly the second time. And here's where it gets really powerful. Do this weekly. Record yourself on the same or different topics every week. Over weeks and months, you'll have a record of your improvement. I'm telling you, this is shocking. People are amazed when they listen to a recording from months ago and hear how much they've improved. You might not notice the improvement week to week, but over time, it's dramatic.
This is also incredibly good for your confidence. You get concrete evidence that you're getting better. You're not just imagining it, you can hear it. So even though it feels uncomfortable, I really encourage you to do this. Record yourself, listen back, notice your progress, celebrate it, and then keep going. Let's talk about goal setting, because goals are important for maintaining motivation and building confidence. But here's the key. The goals you set should be specific, achievable, and meaningful to you. A vague goal like get better at English is not very helpful. A specific goal like have a 10-minute conversation in English without asking someone to repeat themselves more than twice is much more useful. An unachievable goal like become fluent in 3 weeks will just demoralize you. An achievable goal like practice speaking for 30 minutes every day this week is realistic and motivating. And a goal that means something to you will keep you motivated. If your goal is speak well enough to have a conversation about my job, that might matter to you because it's directly relevant to your life. If your goal is pass an English test, that matters because it has real consequences. Here's a framework for goal setting. I want you to think about 4 time horizons: weekly, monthly, 3-monthly, and yearly. Weekly goal, something you're going to do this week. Maybe practice shadowing for 15 minutes every day, or have 1 conversation in English, or record myself speaking and listen back. These are small, achievable goals. Monthly goal, something you're working toward this month. Maybe have more natural conversations where I hesitate less, or learn and use 20 new vocabulary words, or watch an English movie and understand most of it without subtitles. 3-monthly goal, where do you want to be in 3 months? Maybe be able to have a 15-minute conversation comfortably, or understand native speakers better without asking for constant repetitions. Yearly goal, where do you want to be a year from now? Maybe be able to give a presentation in English, or have meaningful friendships with English speakers, or work in an English-speaking environment with confidence. The beautiful thing about setting goals is that it gives you direction. You're not just practicing randomly, you're practicing towards something. And as you achieve each goal, you feel a sense of accomplishment. You feel like you're moving forward, and that builds confidence. I want to share something that might sound a bit woo-woo, but I promise you, it's actually grounded in psychology. Affirmations, specifically personal affirmations that you create and practice. An affirmation is a positive statement about yourself. The key word is that you believe it or you're willing to believe it.
It's not about lying to yourself or denying reality. It's about intentionally focusing on what's true about you. For example, if you're working on your English speaking, some affirmations might be, I am capable of speaking English clearly. I am getting better every day. I have the courage to speak even when I'm nervous. I am proud of my progress. I am a fluent and confident speaker, and I'm building toward that every day. The reason these matter is because your brain listens to what you say to yourself. If you're constantly telling yourself negative things, your brain believes those things. But if you're telling yourself positive things, your brain believes those too. And this affects your actual performance. When you believe you can do something, you're more likely to do it. When you believe you're getting better, you're more likely to notice improvements. When you believe you're capable, you're more likely to try. Here's how to use affirmations. Pick 1 or 2 affirmations that really resonate with you, something that addresses your specific concern. If you're worried about making mistakes, an affirmation might be, I embrace mistakes as part of learning. If you're worried about your accent, my accent is fine. People understand me, and I'm improving. Then, practice these affirmations daily. You can say them out loud, you can write them down, you can repeat them to yourself during the day, especially when you're feeling anxious or doubtful. The first few times you do this, it might feel forced or silly. That's okay. Keep doing it. Over time, you'll notice that you start to believe these affirmations. They become part of your internal dialogue. And this changes how you show up. When you believe you're a capable speaker, you speak more confidently, you take more risks, you keep trying even when it's hard. So find affirmations that matter to you, practice them daily, and watch how it shifts your confidence. Let me share something that I think is really important to understand. There's a connection between anxiety and language learning, and understanding this connection can really help you manage your experience. First, some anxiety is actually helpful. Optimal anxiety actually improves performance. If you have 0 anxiety, you might not try very hard. But if you have some anxiety, it activates you. It makes you alert. It makes you try harder. So some anxiety is good. The problem is when anxiety becomes too high. When anxiety is very high, it actually impairs performance. You can't think clearly. You freeze up. You can't access what you know. There's a sweet spot, a level of anxiety that's enough to keep you engaged and motivated, but not so much that it paralyzes you. And here's something really important. You can lower your overall anxiety by building competence. The more competent you feel, the less anxious you are. That's why practice is so important. Every time you practice successfully, you're building a track record of competence. Your brain says, hey, I can do this, and your anxiety goes down. This is why the early steps matter so much. When you first start pushing yourself to speak, you might be very anxious, but after you do it a few times and realize you survived, your anxiety goes down. After you do it many times, it becomes much less scary. So here's what I want you to know. If you're anxious about speaking English, that's completely normal. You're trying to do something challenging. Of course you're anxious. And that anxiety will naturally decrease as you practice and build competence. The mistake people make is they let the anxiety stop them from practicing. They think, I'm too nervous to speak, and so they don't speak, and they never get the practice that would actually lower their anxiety. But if you can push through the anxiety, if you can speak even though you're nervous, you'll find that the anxiety decreases and your confidence increases. Something I want to talk about is finding your authentic voice in English, because there's a difference between sounding like someone else and sounding like yourself. When you're learning English, it's easy to try to imitate native speakers. You listen to how they speak and you try to copy them exactly. There's value in that to some degree. You're learning natural pronunciation and patterns. But ultimately, your goal is not to sound like a native English speaker. Your goal is to sound like yourself, expressing yourself authentically in English. And this is actually more powerful for confidence. When you're trying to be someone else, you're never quite good enough because you'll never be exactly like them. But when you're being yourself, you're already perfect. You're authentically you. So I want to invite you to stop trying to sound like a native speaker and start trying to sound like yourself, speaking English. This means that your accent might remain, and that's okay. Your accent is part of who you are. It's part of your identity. It's interesting. It tells a story about where you come from. This means your grammar might not be perfect, and that's okay. If you're understood, that's what matters. This means your vocabulary might be limited in some areas, and that's okay. You're learning. You express yourself with the words you know. This means you might speak slowly or use pauses, and that's okay. You're thinking. You're being careful. You sound thoughtful. So instead of trying to become someone else, become the best version of yourself speaking English. I want to talk about failure because failure is going to happen, and how you handle it determines your success. You're going to speak English and completely mess it up. You're going to forget how to say something. You're going to say something and immediately regret it. You're going to misunderstand what someone said and respond in a way that makes no sense. These things will happen. So the question is, what do you do when they happen? Do you beat yourself up? Do you stop trying? Or do you dust yourself off and keep going? The people who become successful at speaking English are not the people who never fail. They're the people who fail repeatedly and keep going. I'm going to tell you a story. I once had a conversation in English where I completely misunderstood what someone was saying. I gave a response that made no sense. The person looked at me confused and then explained what they actually meant. I felt embarrassed in the moment, but you know what? I learned something, and I never made that mistake again. That failure was actually valuable. It taught me something. So failures are opportunities. They're not signs that you should stop. They're signs that you're pushing yourself. Here's what I want you to do. Treat failures as data points, not judgments. Something didn't work? Okay, what can you learn from that? What would you do differently next time? How can you adjust? And then move on. Don't dwell on it. Don't use it as evidence that you're terrible. Use it as information to improve. This is called resilience. It's your ability to bounce back from difficulty. And resilience is actually more important for success than talent. People who are resilient keep going when it's hard. People who aren't resilient give up. So build your resilience. Every time something doesn't go well, remind yourself that this is part of learning. Every time you recover from a mistake, you're building resilience. One more thing I want to talk about is learning styles, because not everyone learns the same way, and understanding how you learn best can really improve your confidence and your effectiveness. Some people are visual learners. They learn best by seeing things, written words, diagrams, videos. If you're a visual learner, you might benefit from reading English, watching videos, and looking at visual representations of concepts. Some people are auditory learners. They learn best by hearing things, listening to podcasts, conversations, audio lessons. If you're an auditory learner, you might benefit from listening a lot and speaking. Some people are kinesthetic learners. They learn best by doing things, hands-on practice, movement, physical engagement. If you're a kinesthetic learner, you might benefit from role-playing conversations, physical practice, and practical application. Most people are a combination, but you probably have a preference. So think about how you learn best. What activities have helped you learn most effectively in the past? What environments do you do your best learning in? What approaches feel most natural to you? Then tailor your practice to how you learn best. If you're a visual learner, use written materials and videos. If you're auditory, listen a lot. If you're kinesthetic, practice physically.
When you learn in a way that matches your style, learning is easier and more enjoyable, and that naturally builds confidence. Let's go back to something I mentioned early on, because I think it's really important: perfectionism, and specifically how perfectionism works against confidence. Perfectionism is when you set impossibly high standards for yourself and then judge yourself harshly when you don't meet them. Perfectionism looks like, I made one small mistake, therefore I'm a failure. Or, I'm not perfect yet, therefore I'm not good enough. Perfectionism is absolutely the enemy of confidence because you're setting yourself up to fail. There's no such thing as perfect English. There's no point where you've achieved perfection and can finally feel confident. So perfectionism is a trap. It keeps you constantly feeling inadequate. But here's the thing: perfectionism often comes from a good place. You care about doing well, you want to improve. That's good, but the way perfectionism expresses that is counterproductive. So what I want to invite you to do is aim for excellence, not perfection. Excellence is doing your best with the tools and knowledge you have. Excellence is constantly improving. Excellence is trying again after you fail. But excellence is not perfection. Excellence is realistic. Excellence is sustainable. So when you catch yourself thinking perfectionist thoughts like, I need to be perfect, pause and remind yourself, I'm aiming for excellence, not perfection. I'm doing my best. I'm improving. This shift in mindset will actually make you more confident because you're no longer chasing an impossible standard. You're pursuing something real and achievable.
Here's something I want to talk about that's really important: integration. Making English a part of your daily life, not just something you study. The most successful English learners don't study English for an hour and then forget about it. They weave English into their daily life. They think about English, they consume English, they use English. Here's what that might look like. You listen to English podcasts on your commute. You watch English shows or movies in your free time. You read English articles or books that interest you. You message friends in English. You think about your day in English. When English is part of your daily life, you're constantly learning. You're constantly exposing yourself to the language. You're constantly practicing, and you're building an identity as an English speaker. This might sound like a lot, but it doesn't have to be. You don't have to change everything overnight. Just pick one or two things you can add to your daily life. Maybe you start listening to English podcasts while you cook. Maybe you change your phone settings to English. Maybe you watch one English show a week. Maybe you start journaling in English. The point is, you're creating a life where English is present. And when English is part of your daily life, speaking English becomes normal. It becomes integrated. It's not this separate, scary thing. It's just part of how you live. As we're wrapping up, I want to talk about something that's really important: celebrating the journey, not just the destination. It's easy to focus on where you want to be. I want to be fluent. I want to speak naturally without hesitation. I want to sound like a native speaker. These are good goals, but if you're only focused on the destination, you miss out on the journey. And the journey is where the growth happens. The journey is where the confidence is built. So I want to invite you to appreciate where you are right now. You're learning English. That's incredible. You're pushing yourself. That's brave. You're doing something difficult. That's admirable. Maybe you're not fluent yet. Maybe you still hesitate. Maybe you make mistakes. But you're here. You're trying. You're showing up for yourself. That deserves celebration. So whether you've been studying English for weeks or years, I want you to take a moment right now and acknowledge the effort you've put in. Acknowledge the courage it takes to speak in a language that's not your first language. Acknowledge your progress, no matter how small it might seem. You're doing great, really. Okay, we've covered a lot of ground today. Let me pull this all together for you. Building confidence in English is not about knowing everything. It's not about speaking perfectly. It's not about sounding like a native speaker.
Building confidence is about becoming comfortable with yourself as a speaker of English. It's about accepting your imperfect self and speaking anyway. It's about practicing consistently and noticing your improvements. It's about surrounding yourself with support. It's about managing your anxiety rather than trying to eliminate it. Here's what I want you to remember. Confidence is a skill. You can develop it. You can build it. You can master it. And it doesn't happen overnight. It happens through consistent practice. It happens through small wins, celebrated regularly. It happens through failures that you learn from. It happens through showing up, even when you're nervous.
So here's what I want you to do over the next week. Pick one thing from this episode that resonates with you. Maybe it's shadowing. Maybe it's recording yourself. Maybe it's practicing self-talk. Maybe it's setting goals. Maybe it's celebrating your wins. Pick one thing and practice it daily. Notice how it affects your confidence. Then, next week, add another thing. Build on what you're doing. Create habits that support your growth. And here's the most important thing. Be patient with yourself. You're learning something difficult. Be kind to yourself. Encourage yourself. Celebrate your effort. Because that's what confidence really is. It's not thinking you're perfect. It's thinking you're worth the effort. It's believing in yourself enough to try, even when you're scared. You've got this. I absolutely believe in you. Thank you so much for spending this time with me today. This has been absolutely wonderful. I'm so grateful that you're here, that you're listening, that you're taking your English seriously. I want to hear from you. How are you feeling right now? What's one thing from today that you're going to work on? I'd love to know. As I mentioned at the beginning, if you're enjoying the Confidence Breakthrough podcast, please subscribe. Leave a review if you can. Share it with someone who you think would benefit from it. Your support means the world to me. I'm already working on more episodes, and I can't wait to share them with you. We're going to dive deeper into specific speaking situations. We're going to explore different aspects of building confidence. We're going to keep growing together. Until next time, keep speaking, keep practicing, keep believing in yourself. You're doing an amazing job. I'm Lily, and I'll see you next time on the Confidence Breakthrough podcast. Thank you so much for listening. Take care.